better.
I think it's low-key better.
Pre-check, you get to take your shoes off. Clear is a private business. But even like with Clear, you can still get into some fucked lines.
All right, let's get it.
All right, let's do it. Welcome in everyone to a week. Are we at week 16 right now? Week 16 NFL Parlay with the G's picks cast. Thank you to our listeners in the United States and abroad. Apparently, we have some European listeners on this podcast. So shout out to the UK and shout out to Germany for hosting football games. Mexico City, hopefully coming up here in the future. And we need to get the NFL in some elsewhere places. Stoked to be joined today by Trevin O'Kane, Steelers faithful, and also LJ Basong, Raider Nation faithful, coming off of a titty-womp win against the Chargers last week on Thursday Night Football. It's been a week since that happened. First question for the panel. Did anyone place a parlay or a bet last week? Because I know we didn't get to record. And how did it go?
Yeah, no, I mean, I usually take about 10 to 15 bets every Sunday, but I think the morning slate, the one game that didn't hit for the parlay, I think it was the Jets. I can't remember if they lost that game or if it was this week, but I hit pretty fat on the afternoon games, all the favorites in that. So
did you place a bet on the Bills in the afternoon set, LJ?
Yeah, no. I honestly don't remember. All these weeks feel the same to me.
They're
literally
clustering in at this point. Down
like
the
when
stretch.
did the Bills? Like when did the? Oh yeah, no, yeah. So it was Bills, Rams, who almost blew it, and who was the last? They were favorites. Oh, and the Niners. They all covered.
Yeah, so some games last week, starting off from the top, we had the Raiders blow out the Chargers 63-21. Bengals beat the Vikings 27-24. And then the Colts beat the Steelers 30-13. Those were 3 Saturday games. Trevin, checking in really quick as a Steelers fan. Did you watch that one Saturday?
I always watch Red Zone. So, I watched part of it, but I actually never watched like the full game through. I think if the Steelers were a little bit better, I would watch it through, but I can't to watch that just absolute trash show of an offense for a whole game. It's too long.
Yeah, and they're sneaking some Saturday games in on us. There was 3 of those last week, and it's looking like we got a few this week as well. But Steelers still on the hunt. So as a Steelers fan, one of the first games we're going to pick today, they will be playing an AFC North showdown, but not a good showing on Saturday against the Colts. Then we had the Lions big over the Broncos, Saints over the Giants, Browns over the Bears. Panthers got their second win of the season, 9-7, ugly one over the Falcons. Bucs took care of the Packers. Dolphins shut out the Jets. Chiefs took care of the Patriots. Texans squeaked out a close one against the Titans. The Niners went up big on the Cardinals. The Rams took care of the Commanders. The Bills smacked up the Cowboys in Buffalo. I unfortunately was in attendance to witness that murder. And then the Ravens beat the Jaguars, and then lastly the Hawks over the Eagles. So a lot of difference coming down the stretch here, but that was a tough week to call, especially from a betting perspective. But let's get here to NFL Week 16. No one hit their parlays last week. LJ hit a few singles, as he's mentioning. I had the Raiders money line in my parlay last week. I had the Chiefs money line in my parlay last week. The Dolphins took care of business. The 49ers took care of business. Unfortunately, it was the NFC East who let me down. The Cowboys lost to the Bills, and the Eagles lost on Monday night to the Seahawks. Also, for NFL MVP thoughts, LJ, Dak Prescott was a name that you mentioned a few weeks ago. Still in contention, but right now it's looking like Brock Purdy, maybe Lamar Jackson, maybe even Josh Allen if you can get them to fly down the stretch here. But Dak's got to win a tough one in Miami this week, and then also against the Detroit Lions the next week to get that record back. So let's start off with the Sunday morning set here. We're going to week 16, starting fresh on the slate here. This is 1 o'clock on the East Coast. And then this is the Cincinnati Bengals. They are coming off a win last week, and they're going to go play the Pittsburgh Steelers, coming off of a loss to the Indianapolis Colts. The Steelers lead this series 69-39 all time. Mostly cloudy, but a chance of rain in Pittsburgh. So, Trevin, we got to begin with you as the Steelers fan. How do you see this one playing out in Pittsburgh?
Fortunately, not good. I mean, usually, you know me, I pick the Steelers in these divisional games, and more often than not, even when they're bad, I'm right because it's a divisional game. Mike Tomlin wins divisional games, but I think if Pickett was back this week, I think the team would have rallied. But with Mason Rudolph in, I just don't see it. I do think that we'll see a rebound from the defense a little bit this week. The defense has really been a letdown the last couple of weeks, like very surprisingly so. I don't know if they're just kicking the can or what's going on there, but divisional game, I do think the defense will show up this week, and I think we'll get a better performance. But at the end of the day, like Mason Rudolph at the helm, after Myles Garrett just knocked all the talent out of him a few years ago, like I just don't see them putting up any points, to be honest. The Bengals look nice. Even with Joe Burrow not in there, arguably maybe even better this year without him in there. So fortunately, I'm taking the Bengals to cover. Obviously, I'm taking the Bengals to win, and I do think the defense is going to show up. So I'm going to take the under on this one.
So Bengals to cover that 3 points under 38 points. This is an AFC North matchup, and the Bengals to take care of business. As in the AFC North right now, the Ravens are sitting at 11-3, the Browns are at 9-5, the Bengals at 8-6, and the Steelers at 7-7. So if the Steelers want a chance, they're going to have to pull this out to even up with the Bengals. But as the Steelers fan is mentioning, tough coming up here with Mason Rudolph getting the start. LJ, how do you see this one playing out in Pittsburgh with the 3 points for Cincinnati?
Yeah, you know my philosophy on Tomlin. If he's an underdog, I'm gonna roll with him. Can't believe you're not rolling with your squad, Trev.
I'm not rolling with Mason Rudolph, to be very
clear. He's honestly pretty terrible, but I don't know. The Bengals without Jamar Chase, in my opinion, are just not the same team. He takes a lot of attention, and I can see this game kind of being an upset by the Steelers. I see them, their defense kind of stepping up. So, I mean, we'll see. Wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way, but I'm going to go with the Steelers here. I kind of like the over. I know the Bengals also lost a lot of guys on defense also. And I could see this being like a sneaky shootout, not like a normal AFC North matchup, but not too confident on either side, but I'd go with the Steelers.
It not being a shootout is the lock of the century, I think.
Well, I just think the Bengals defense is terrible. They made Nick Mullins look like Patrick Mahomes last week. So
Steelers offense is even worse, though.
I know.
And George Pickens doesn't even want to run routes anymore. He just walks around.
Oh, he's not blocking. It's not even just the routes.
He looks like Spencer James out there.
So LJ, +3, or do you think Steelers can win this one?
Yeah, I think I have the score Pittsburgh 24, Bengals 21. I think they win by about a field goal. I think this is a field goal game either way.
All right, so we got some discrepancy to start the show off here. Trevin has no faith in his squad, which sometimes works in your favor. If you opt out, bail out on your team, that is a peaceful way to go into the Sunday matchup here. But he likes the Bengals in this one. LJ likes the Steelers in this matchup. For me, looking at this, I mean, come on, I've picked the Steelers in like 3 or 4 parlays this year for games they're supposed to win, and they've let me down consistently. So I can't do that. I'm not going there. That's a town over there that I'm not walking into. I've been there too many times. So Steelers definitely not in the parlay for this week. I think last week, if you're just looking at the AFC and seeing them lose 30-13 to the Colts, we're not super high on the Colts, but they may be one of those fringe playoff teams. And for the Steelers not being able to take care of business, for that franchise, it looks and it sounds like there's a lot of change coming up for the shows that I'm tuning into this morning. It's not Mike Tomlin that's the problem. Maybe he needs a better start. Maybe he needs to change the culture, because ever since a lot of those guys on that defense left and it was Big Ben at the helm, a lot of the just principles and things that they stood for are not important anymore, and which is why you see guys not blocking on plays. So not a good look for the Steelers. The Bengals, although they're without Joe Burrow, Jake Browning seemed to be serviceable the past few weeks. They did get a big win over Indianapolis in Cincinnati a few weeks ago, and they did squeak out a win recently against the Vikings. That was a weird game on Saturday last week. So I got to rock with the Bengals and how they've looked recently. I do see a little more scoring potential, though, with Rudolph being the quarterback. I think he's got a good deep ball. Been seeing that since he was at Oklahoma State. Not saying he's a good quarterback, but for the over-under, I'm going to ride with you on this one, LJ. Although I know philosophically we always like to take the AFC North unders in these matchups. I'm going to, for the purposes of this one, let's go Bengals -3, over 38, Cincinnati to take this one 23-17. Oh, and by the way, this is a 2:30 game on Saturday, not a Sunday game. Okay, next up, this is going to be Saturday as well. We have the Buffalo Bills coming off of a big win on Sunday. They're going cross country to play the Chargers, who I think that was the worst loss the Chargers have ever had since I've been watching them. LJ, I mean, like watching that game, like what the fuck happened in that one?
That was probably one of the worst losses that I've ever seen in my entire life compared to that Broncos one. I was just shocked at this point. I mean, the whole time I was thinking, damn, I wish this mattered, but it was nice.
Were you watching that from the jump?
Yeah, I was watching it from the jump. Once they turned the ball over like for the fourth time in their own like territory, I was like, yeah, this shit is over. But I mean, they just gave up. I mean, I don't know. I just think they're not good. They weren't well coached, and that's why they fired Staley. So,
well, hey, they're big underdogs this week. Let's just say that. So the Chargers, they're not going to be in Vegas this week, thankfully for them, but they are going to host the Buffalo Bills, who are coming off a big win. The Chargers lead this series 25-13 all time. No weather issues. This is in Los Angeles, so we got the dome. The Chargers are sitting at 5-9. Their season's pretty much packed in, and they have the Bills coming to town, who are 8-6 on the season. And still within contention of maybe jumping up in the AFC East division, competing against Miami. Buffalo on the road is a 12.5-point favorite. That's not a big surprise after the Chargers lost last week. The over-under is 44. So LJ, I know, I mean, this team shouldn't even be an NFL team, but is this lock of the week? Are the Buffalo Bills the lock of the week this week?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it a lock. That's a lot of points, but I mean, what we saw from the Chargers last week, I'm not taking the Chargers, so I'm going to go with the Bills here. I've been high on the Bills all week. I mean, all year. I don't know what was going on in the beginning of the season, and I now think that they're really the only team that can beat the Niners from the AFC, because I don't think the AFC is that good. So I'm going to go with the Bills here. As far as the total goes, I feel like the number's pretty perfect, because I could see the Chargers not being able to score and the Bills scoring a lot, in the 30s, and the Chargers scoring maybe 10 points. So no confidence in either side, but I'll go with the over. Just, I think that the Bills just absolutely wax them across the face. So.
All right, circle the wagons. The Buffalo Bills are coming to town. They're coming for a big win. I don't know if they're capable of putting on the Chargers what the Raiders commenced on them last Thursday in Vegas, but the Buffalo Bills are coming to town. They're going to take care of business against stick, tick, wick, stick. Who cares? Buffalo Bills take this one. Trevin, how do you see this one playing out in SoFi?
Yeah, I mean, obviously last week was really embarrassing. I know you guys called out the Miami Denver game as maybe being more embarrassing. Honestly, I think last week was by far more embarrassing. Like, at least with Miami, like, they have a powerhouse offense. Like, at that point in the season, they were also really hot. And Denver wasn't supposed to be good, and so that was what it was. Like, no offense, LJ, but like Aiden O'Connell,
and it was a primetime game too. I forgot about that.
It's bad. And I mean, if you look at the Chargers defense, like, they have some players on that side. Like, their defense is not good. I will flat out say that their defense is not good, but you look at their defense, you look at some of the players they have.
Bosa, Mack.
Yeah, they shouldn't be.
How many times are we going to say Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and it doesn't amount to anything?
Yeah, it's insane. And then you have
Derwin James.
You have both those guys rushing after Aiden O'Connell, and he's putting up those kind of like, I just don't understand. That was embarrassing. With that, I will say the Buffalo Bills have burned me like multiple times this season. They're like the
That
stock
was the
market.
old Bills.
Dude, I don't know though, because they're like the
This is
stock
the
market.
December Buffalo Bills now. Holy fuck.
They were hot at the beginning of the season though, and like you're riding the
Super
high
hot.
when there's all like
Yeah.
there's all the FOMO. You're like, I want to ride the Bills. Like let me throw all the money at them. Like we're going to the moon, and then all of a sudden just turds like the next couple weeks. And then when you think the Bills are done, you think they're done. You're like, oh, I won't touch these with like a 10-foot pole. All of a sudden they take back off again. Like it's psychological trauma. So like I have that. It's like it scares me a little bit. Like I think the Bills should run with this, but I am psychologically damaged by this team this year. It's ruined more than one of my parlays. With that being said, I'm still gonna ride the hide with the Bills. I hope they don't burn me again. 12.5 point spread's pretty crazy. I do think it'll be the over. Like I do think the over is probably a lock here, especially with the Chargers defense and assuming that the Bills run hot again and don't do what they've done multiple times this season. I'll take them to cover though still, just because that outing from the Chargers last week was so bad. I don't even know who the head coach is for the Chargers anymore. Who knows? I know it's like some no name. I don't know much about him, but yeah, I'll take the Bills to cover. I'll take the over. And then obviously that means I'm taking the Bills to win as well.
All right, personal experience for Poppy. Not happy with the Bills, but Bills have looked differently recently. I'm going to read off some of the schedule here. They came off with a loss to start the season, big win against the Raiders after that, huge win against the Commanders, huge win against Miami. Then they went on a little bit of a skid, losing to Jacksonville and London, close win against the Giants at home on Sunday night, then losing games like to the Patriots middle of the season, barely beating the Bucs, losing to Cincinnati, losing that awful one on Monday night to the Broncos by a field goal that got Ken Dorsey, their offensive coordinator, fired. Then they hired Joe Brady, who was the offensive coordinator at LSU for Joe Burrow. And they come back, put it up on the Jets convincingly, barely lost to the Eagles, beat the Chiefs, and then smacked the Cowboys last week. So they've had a roller coaster season, the Bills. But as of late, with wins against teams like the Chiefs and wins against teams like the Cowboys, it makes you believe that Buffalo is right in the thick of things. Trevin, I'm going to save your anxiety. Bills lock of the week. Just the way that football team that I saw last week, maybe there's that factor that they have to go across the country. And also, LJ, to points that we make about double-digit NFL games, not liking to lay that. Yes, but I just think that this is definitely a 2-touchdown team better than the LA Chargers. So although 12.5 points is not 9.5 points, that's more than fine for a game like this. I don't even know what the Chargers are at this point. As soon as Stick started quarterbacking for them, they were getting spanked by the Broncos and spanked by the Raiders in no time. And their coach is fired. So who even knows where they're standing right now? Bills minus 12.5, lock of the week in my mind, although it's a big number. Over 44, Buffalo 33-13. Watch out for Buffalo if they get in the playoffs. All right, next up here, we have the Detroit Lions. They're going to play the Minnesota Vikings. I believe that this is a Saturday game as well. Pretty sure this is this Sunday morning? Mm-hmm. Okay. So this one coming up here next is the Detroit Lions going to play the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings lead this series 80-41 all time. This is dome weather, not too much to worry about here. But Detroit is a 3-point favorite at home. The over-under is 47.5. So Trevin, we're going to begin with you. I know we've talked about the Lions being frauds, but last week they beat up on Denver. So are they, can we trust them now?
I don't know. This one's like not a game that I feel that great about, to be honest. But like, I don't know. I'm once again, I'm gonna bet against a quarterback, and that's Nick Mullins on the Vikings. Like he's getting the start this week, right? I think over. Yeah, it was Darren Hall. They were talking about for a second. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much I trust Nick Mullins. Like the Lions.
Is Josh Dobbs injured? What happened to that project?
No, they benched him.
They just benched him. Yeah, after that game where he threw like 4 interceptions and scored nothing a few weeks ago.
He's done for. Get him out of there.
Yeah, the Pastronaut, he lived all of about 2 weeks. But
The hype died down.
yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to say about this game, to be honest. Like the Lions are frauds, like the Vikings are the Vikings. I guess that's all I'm gonna say there. And I'm gonna take the Lions to cover. I don't know, the over is kind of high on this one. So I'm gonna take the under here, and I'm gonna take the Lions to cover.
All right, restore the roar. If the Lions do get a win this week, that is going to put them at, let's jump over to the NFC here. That's going to put them at 11-4. So a really good record for that franchise for as long as we've been alive. But we know that, in the NFC with teams like the Niners lurking in the distance, how far off are the Lions? We'll have to wait to see in matchups like the playoffs. LJ, how do you see this one playing out in Minnesota?
Yeah, I agree with Trevin here. I don't really feel confident on either side. I mean, the Lions, I think, are the better team, but we've seen that they can just absolutely choke and blow it somehow. Vikings defense is low-key good also, and they're the home team. So I think I'm going to ride with Minnesota here. I feel like Jared Goff hasn't had 2 good games in a row in a long time, so I'm going to continue that streak on him going back and forth. He had a good game versus Denver, so I'm going to go with a bad game versus Minnesota. And I'll go with the under as well, under 47. I think Minnesota wins by about a field goal. They got a lot of their guys back with Jay Jettas and Addison and all these guys, so I think they'll be able to keep it close. And the Lions defense is trash.
Boo! Here come the Minnesota Vikings storing back here. 7-7 on the season. When a lot of us were picking the NFC North before the season started, a lot of us had the Vikings taking that division. But here now the Lions are at 11-4, in full contention. But here comes the Vikings to spoil down the stretch at 7-7 and jump back up to 8-7. And the Lions, you can't trust them when you pick them to, beat the Bears a few weeks ago. And that was LJ's lock of the week, that they didn't know what Chicago had coming for them. The fact that the Lions beat up on the Broncos last week, when I saw that spread of 5.5, I thought Denver for sure would cover that spread. They had been playing close down the stretch. Trevin, I know that you are higher on Russell Wilson. He's been looking much better down the stretch here, winning close games like that. But they got the shit kicked out of them by the Lions, so I have to jump back on the Lions bandwagon. LJ, the Raider game that you went to this year, the Vikings scored 3 total points, and Nick Mullins was their quarterback. So I'm not signing up for anything on that agenda for Minnesota. I'll take Detroit here. Even though they blew it a few weeks ago to the Bears, they're a better football team in my mind. Jared Goff's a better quarterback in my mind. And sometimes they can slip up. I hope this is not the week, though, for the purposes of picking them. Detroit -3, under 47.5. We're all in agreement there on the total. And then the Lions to take this one 24-17. And, maybe they'll go for the 2 seed this year, because I see the Niners getting the 1 seed in the NFC. All right, next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks. They're going to play the Tennessee Titans. 2 interesting teams coming down the stretch here that aren't necessarily playoff contenders. Maybe the Seahawks are playoff contenders, but they are capable of upsetting good teams, aka the Dolphins and aka the Eagles. The Seahawks lead this series 10-8 all time. This matchup is going to be mostly sunny in Tennessee. The Seahawks on the road are 3.5-point favorites. The over-under is 41.5. LJ, I venture to say, maybe the Seahawks are the only team here in playoff contention, but it is kind of tough to judge the level of motivation that each of these teams have. Who are you feeling with going for on those 3.5 points?
I'm gonna go with the Seahawks here. I think that they're just the better team. I don't feel that confident about it, because Tennessee is also a weird team. Sometimes they look like really good, and then sometimes it's like, dude, what the hell? Plus, they'll have Ryan Tannehill back, so I'm gonna go with the Seahawks here. I think that they win. I think I'm more confident in the Steelers, so I'm going to go with them covering the 3.5 here. As far as the total goes, man, I don't know. I could see it going either way.
You said Seahawks more comfortable with the 3.5, or Titans more comfortable with 3.5?
The Seahawks, they're the better team. I guess they're still in playoff contention. I think they have a really hard rest of the season schedule, so I don't think they get in. But I mean that Philly win was pretty big. I think they continue to roll here. So I'll go with the Seahawks minus 3.5. I'll go with the over 41, and I think Seattle wins by about 4 to 7 points.
All right, so then that would put the Seahawks at 8-7 on the season, and the Rams after last night would be 8-7 as well. But thinking back now, the Rams have beat the Seahawks twice already this year, so that would be big for them in head-to-head to leap the Seahawks going into the playoffs. But more to trust about the Seahawks than the Tennessee Titans right now. Trevin, how do you feel about this one in Nashville?
Yeah, I mean, same as LJ. Like, I'm gonna take the Seahawks here. I would love, honestly, the Titans to win because I have Derrick Henry on my fantasy team and I need him to show out this week.
Oh, you do have Derrick Henry on your fantasy team.
Yeah, I do. I would have taken Christian McCaffrey if he was still on the board, but that's a conversation for another day. That being said, like, I don't know, Derrick Henry just looks like a shell of himself for the most part this year. He started off slow, kind of got into like a mid-season flow and looked kind of nice for a couple games, and then his kind of dropped back off since. Their offense is looks decent, but they just don't have like a lot of like big threats without him running the ball well. I think they're obviously like a run first, open up pass team, and without him playing well, that kind of limits them a little bit. The Seahawks have had a couple nice games recently. I think they're looking like a little bit hot right now. Like you said, they are in playoff contention. So, they have something to fight for where, I don't know that the Titans do per se. So I'm going to take the Seahawks at minus 3.5 to cover. Under over here. I don't know. I don't feel as good about this one, but I think I'll probably go with the over on this game. And yeah, Seahawks to win it here.
All right, both on the panel over 41.5 this week. Also both on the panel Seahawks to cover 3.5. I mean, definitely good for them. Those are those upsets that we have to worry about coming down the stretch here when teams like the Seahawks do beat the Eagles. But the Eagles have definitely been on a skid recently. So maybe we can pick up on some of those trends for teams that are falling off down the stretch here. Tennessee is just one of those teams, and they were 13-point underdogs to Miami, and they ended up winning that Monday night game, where that made me believe that they can scrap, and they're at that stage where they can scrap. So I'm not sure how comfortable I feel in Seattle with Drew Lock going to Tennessee and getting a big win. I'm not sure if Geno Smith or Drew Lock is going to get the start, but I'm picking this game as if Drew Lock is going to be the quarterback. I think Tennessee is going to keep this closer than they should. I don't think it's a huge downgrade if Tannehill goes in at quarterback. Definitely think Will Levis is more worthy to be the quarterback for their future on that team. But Tannehill, I think he can compete and he can keep this game close for the purposes of the spread. So I'm actually going to go Tennessee plus 3.5 for this one. I think the Titans are good at keeping games close, and this might come down to a field goal, but I can't pick their team as a whole right now over the Seahawks team as a whole. Seahawks have good players on defense. They got playmakers on offense. If you can get them the ball, like we saw with Jackson Smith and Jigma for the game winner there, DK Metcalf when he was fed properly against the Cowboys on Thursday night. They got playmakers if they can get them the ball. And Drew Lock hasn't looked terrible recently. Seattle 20 and Titans 17 in this matchup, but I will take the Titans to cover in difference.
Isn't Geno playing this week? Is he back?
Yeah, I think he's supposed to play.
He is going to play. Okay.
Geno's back.
Well, if he does play, then that would favor me towards that 3.5 for Seattle. But with my mind going into this, I'm thinking Tennessee to cover and lose by a field goal. That's how I'm going to play this matchup. And definitely not a best bet of the week.
I think too, even with them, I know you said the Eagles are on the downhill slope, but they kind of, and I'm not like big on moral victories, but 2 weeks ago against the 49ers, like 16-28, like I feel like that's a moral victory against the Niners. They've like blown out some teams and the Seahawks didn't get blown out there.
Yeah, no, he was looking pretty good in the second half there. He threw a touchdown. I think it was like 21-18 at some point or something like that. And then a few interceptions down the stretch, and then the wheels just came off for the Seahawks against the Niners, but to not have Geno Smith in there and to be competitive in San Francisco, I agree. Something good to look at for Seattle. Just give me the culture sake of the Titans, though, being competitive and finding a way to keep this closer than it should be, but Seahawks to get the win. Okay, next up here, we have the Cleveland Browns coming from the AFC North. They're going down to play the Houston Texans. I'm pretty sure CJ Stroud is not playing at this point in the season, so expect Davis Mills for the Texans. The Texans lead this series 7-6 all time, so this is a close one. Cleveland is 3-point favorites on the road. The over-under is 40. The Browns right now are very much, looking like a playoff team. Right now, they are 9-5 on the season, so if they can get this win, that pushes them to 10-5. And the Texans right now are 8-6, so they're looking like a playoff team as well. This game's important for them. Trevin, let's begin with you in the AFC. I know this is a big matchup. Cleveland's favored by 3 points. The over-under is 40. How do you see this one playing out in Houston?
I'm actually a little surprised that Cleveland's only favored by 3 points, to be honest. CJ Stroud was in. I might even take the Texans to win this, but the fact that CJ Stroud's not in, I just don't think the Texans are going to be competitive. I don't think the offense is going to drive the ball on that pretty stout Cleveland defense. So I'm definitely taking the Browns to cover here, the Browns to win. And I'm also going to take the under because once again, I don't know that the Texans are going to drive the ball on the Browns defense without CJ Stroud there. And they're also missing that receiver who the rookie
Nico Collins. Oh, Tank Dell.
And him. Yeah, they're missing two of their big offensive threats. No CJ Stroud. I don't see them moving the ball well on a defense like Cleveland.
All right, so the Brownies, they're going to punch their ticket to 10-5 on the season. I definitely think that puts them into the playoffs as it stands right now. And although they don't have Deshaun Watson and they've gone through a little bit of a quarterback carousel here, Joe Flacco has stepped in and he's looked like he can win some games. So this will be another win for him to get in Houston this week. LJ, how do you see this one playing out in Houston?
Yeah, I agree with Trevin here. This is definitely one of my favorite bets of the week. I think the Browns are just sneaky good on offense with Joe Flacco. He's a way better thrower of the football. He's throwing dots out there. Cleveland defense, I guess, isn't as good when they're not at home in that shitty Cleveland weather. But I just think that with Case Keenum, there's no way I can go Texans here. If they had Stroud, I'd like the Texans, but I'm going to go with the Browns here. I do think that this could be a sneaky shootout, so I'm going to go over 40 here because, like I said, I think the Browns defense is really only good at home, but I think that they pull out the win here. So I'm going to go with the Browns cover the 3 over 40, and I think the Browns win by about 4 points. I believe I have Cleveland 24, Texans 20.
All right, so over 40 points, but some points can be generated on both sides. Flacco has not looked bad, especially I'm thinking about that game against the Bears recently, being able to put up points. And even when they lost to the Rams in LA for his first game with the Browns, he was putting up some points in SoFi. Both of you like the Browns to cover this week. Discrepancy, though, on the over-under. Trevin has the under. LJ, you've got the over for this week, the 40 points. I'm going to come join you, Trevin, on the over-under for this week and agree with both of you on the spread. I think with Davis Mills as the quarterback and the Browns being one of the best defenses in the NFL, I see that as a tough scoring day for Houston, being able to generate points. And although Joe Flacco has stepped in for the Browns and been able to score points and look good, that's still a new work in progress. So I don't see them necessarily lighting up the scoreboard. For a Houston defense coached by D'Amico Ryans, who's pretty solid for the most part. So I'm going to go similar score to you, LJ, but in favor of the under and the Browns. So Cleveland 23, and let's go with the Texans 17 for this one. Browns playoff team. That's all I got to say about them at this point. It could be the Bengals, but they look a little fringy. Unfortunately, Trevin, the Steelers have fallen off at this point, and the Ravens are sitting up as that 1 seed. But Browns, to me, are one of those teams with their defense that is a wild card team. All right, let's go next up here to the Washington Commanders. Their season is absolute shambles at this point. Going to play the New York Jets, whose season is pretty much an absolute shambles at this point as well. The Commanders in this matchup lead the series 8-4 all time. Chances of shower, high of 49 in New York for this matchup. Not super interesting game, but we got to pick this thing. The Jets are 3-point favorites at home. The over-under is 37. LJ, Zach Wilson is your favorite quarterback in the NFL. How do you see this one playing out in MetLife?
Well, Zach Wilson's not playing. So, and I'm not going to lie, if Zach Wilson was playing, I honestly would like the Jets here. But with Trevor Siemian, I don't know. I
didn't know Trevor Siemian was getting the start.
No, yeah, he's playing. I think Zach Wilson has like a concussion or something. But the Commanders are so bad too. This is just a game that I definitely will not be watching. I'm not confident in the total or on either side, but if I had to choose, I'd go with the Commanders just because the Commanders, Washington football team, whatever you want to call them. I'm gonna go with them just because they're playing against the Jets. I'm fading the Jets, and then I'll go with the over here. I could see this being not one of those gross games. So I'll go with the over 37. It's pretty low, but not confident on either side.
Well, the most important information I got there was Trevor Siemian's getting the start. I definitely think that favors the Commanders well. Then again, it is the Jets defense, though, so we don't know what they're capable of on any given Sunday. Trevin, your boy Sam Howell, are you confident in him this week, or how do you see this matchup playing out?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I was under the impression that Zach Wilson was playing until just now, too. I didn't realize that he went into concussion protocol. Did that happen at practice?
No, I think it was from last week. Honestly, I'm pretty sure, but
I looked it up. I looked it up. He's getting the start, but this is just the first that I'm hearing of it. I had heard previous to this that Zach Wilson was playing. But anyway,
got the win against the Texans, looked good, and then they got shut out 30-0 last week. So what the hell happened last week to the Jets?
Yeah, that being said, like I was gonna pick the Commanders regardless, even if Zach Wilson was in. I will say that like the fact that Zach Wilson isn't in, I think that's even a bigger motivator for picking the Commanders. The one thing that scares me a little bit is Sam Howell is like one of the most like sacked quarterbacks in the league, I think. I know he turns over the ball a little bit, and the Jets D-line obviously and just general defense is good, and their D-line can create a lot of pressure. The one thing that makes me feel a little bit better is like last week, like the Jets defense like didn't look that great. Like we know that Miami can have a powerhouse offense, but typically they have a powerhouse offense against defenses or teams that are bad. And when they play like good defenses, they don't do as well. Like Tua under pressure doesn't like throw as well. He's like a little bit afraid to get hit. Like I am very surprised that the Jets were not able to create pressure on Tua last week. Like that blew my mind a little bit. With that, like Sam Howell, I've always he gets a lot of hate, but I think he's kind of nice. Like I do, like I don't know, like I think he gets more hate than
most yards in the NFL, not bad.
Yeah, I think he gets more hate than he deserves. I really do. I know he gets trashed a lot on podcasts. I hear it all the time, but when I watch games, I'm like, this guy's kind of dangerous. Like he's a little mobile. He can throw it. Like, who's their top receiver is gone for like a lot of yards the last couple of weeks. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Gary Terry.
Yeah, he's looked pretty nice. So I'm gonna go. I don't feel great about it. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's a Jets Commanders game. Like neither team's great. Either team can show up or not. But I'm going the Jets, or I'm going the Commanders to cover. Opposite of LJ though, I am going the under here. Like Jets defense is stout. I don't know that the Commanders are going to move the ball that much. And Jets offense is obviously trash. Not that the Commanders defense is any good either, but I'm going to have to go the under on that one.
It could kind of convince me on the under there too, because now I'm thinking about Trevor Siemian playing quarterback for the Jets, and I think they're lucky to get more than 7 points if that's the case. Before I drew the score up, I had 23-20, but I was influenced by some information that I didn't know. Look, if Zach Wilson was getting the start, then I got to rock with the team that I saw 2 weeks ago against the Texans, look decent, but then get shut out the next week 30-0. And the Commanders have looked pretty rough coming down the stretch here. Not only do they have on the field issues, They also have organizational issues as well. Their defensive coordinator got fired after that Thanksgiving game against the Cowboys. So there's some rough sledding there for the Commanders. But the fact that Trevor Siemian's getting the start for the Jets, I'm super low on him. I haven't seen anything from him in a while. So I'm going to adjust my score to 17-20 instead of 23-20. And the fact that, Sam Howell is going to get the start against Trevor Siemian, I'll roll with the Commanders and both you all for this matchup. I was thinking Jets, but let's take Washington +3. Let's go under 37. So we'll go 19-16 Commanders, and then I'll fall in line with Washington to cover and also under 37. Okay, next up here, interesting game. We have the Indianapolis Colts coming off of a big win last week against the Steelers, and they're going to go play the Atlanta Falcons, who NFC South, worst division in football, but there still will need to be a playoff team coming out of there. The Colts lead this series 15-2 all time. It's a dome environment, so no weather that we have to worry about. On the road, let's see here. Atlanta is actually 2.5-point favorites at home. The over-under is 44.5. So LJ, we begin with you. How do you see this one playing out in Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm not even sure why the Falcons are favored in this spot. I'm looking here. It looks like a lot of the bets and a lot of the money are being placed on the Falcons, but give me the Colts all day. Been profitable on the Colts all season. I just think that they're the better team. I don't think the Falcons are very good at all. We've been saying this for several months now. They're well coached. The Falcons drafted 3 ballers in the first round, legit lottery picks, and they don't give them the ball. It's bananas. So I'm gonna go with the Colts here. It's 2 dome teams. And I'll go with the over as well. I think this could be a sneaky shootout, but give me the Colts +2.5. I think that they win outright by about a field goal or so. And I'll go over 45 as well.
I agree with you, LJ. This is one of those things this week where this kind of sticks out to me. I don't know how confident some people are about it, but I like your take on that and some of the sentiment I was thinking. Before I go though, Trev, how do you feel about this one in Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with LJ here too. I was pretty surprised to see that this was the spread here to have the Falcons favored. I think the Falcons have been one of those teams where we've thought certain teams were good or certain teams were trash throughout the season, and then they'd have, up like a couple weeks where they'd prove us wrong, or some of them, like even the Broncos, I would argue, like completely turned themselves around. I know they lost last week, but I feel like our sentiment has been the Falcons offense has always been trash the whole year, and that's never really changed. And so I just don't see them doing this here against the Colts. And I'm going to take a little Minshew magic this week, and I'm going to take the Colts to win, the Colts to cover. I'm also going to take the under here, though, because once again, like I just don't know that the Falcons offense is really going to get it going enough to push the over.
All right, both on the panel on the horseshoes this week. Like, I agree with you guys. This is fucking obvious. Why are they 2.5-point favorites on the road in Atlanta? A team that we've been super low on, a team that is 6-8, has lost a ton of games where they could have won. Not a whole good, structure culture going on there in Atlanta. And, Shane Steichen has come over from the Eagles, and he's made the Colts competitive in most all the games that they played in, and look pretty good and deal with some adversity, like, losing Anthony Richardson for the season, and Minshew stepped in and been just fine for them. And they've won some games here, like the Colts beat Baltimore this year. They beat, Tennessee recently. They did lose that game recently in Cincinnati, but that was a game I feel like they could have won. So there's just more elements about Indianapolis that I trust. Does anyone have a word on Jonathan Taylor? Know if he's playing this week?
I think he is.
So like even better for them if he gets the start for them. Plus they got Zach Moss in that offensive line that makes life easier for Minshew, and the defense can make plays. DeForest Buckner, Kenny Moore and company on that defense. I think this is one of my best picks for the week. But Colts to win the game. But if you can't pick them to win the game to cover 2.5 points, I think that's something they're more than capable of doing. Trevin, I agree with you on the under. I'm very low on Desmond Ridder. Think Heineke should have been there for the most part of the season. He's still throwing interceptions at the end of games like last week, and they lost to the Bucs. LJ made money on that recently. So under 44.5, Colts to win 24-17, low on the Falcons. Okay, next up, we have the Green Bay Packers. They're coming off of a did they play the Giants last week, or did they get a bye? No, actually, last week the Packers lost to the Bucs and they lost to the Giants the week before. So after beating Kansas City Chiefs and us thinking that, the Packers have something going here, they've actually lost their last 2 games. Panthers, not much to mention for them other than they've gotten 2 wins on the entire season. Packers lead this series 11-6 all time. It's looking like good weather in Carolina. Sunny with 63. On the road, Green Bay is a 5-point favorite. The over-under is low at 37.5. Trevin, we're beginning with you. I mean, is there any chance the Panthers can pull something off here?
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of garbage time games this year. I don't know. I feel like there's more of those this year than in past years. I know there's also a lot of quarterbacks out and a lot of like younger quarterbacks. So maybe that's driving this a little bit. Yeah, with the Packers, like, I thought they were trash most of the season. They go and they beat the Chiefs, which I was very shocked about. I mean, I do think that the Chiefs are a shell of the team that they once were, but they're still a good team. It was a respectable win. For a moment, changed my mind about them again, gone back on the run of being what I thought they were. That being said, like, they're playing the Panthers. The Panthers barely squeaked out a win against, wasn't it the Falcons last week? They played the Falcons last week, right?
Which team is this?
Yeah,
the Panthers. They played the Falcons last week.
They won 9-7.
Yeah, so barely squeaked out a team that that I just talked about has been sentiment trash all season. So I do think that the Packers should take it here. I'm also going to take the Packers to cover. I'm going to take the under again. I think the Packers actually have the ability to put up some points here, but I just don't think the Panthers will, even though that Green Bay's defense isn't great. So taking the under here and taking the Packers to cover.
All right, so the Pack get back in it here, and let's see if they win this game, that would put them at 7-8. So still relatively within playoff contention, but if you're a Packers fan, 2 tough losses these past few weeks from a high that you were riding, beating Kansas City on Sunday Night Football. LJ, how do you see this one playing out in Carolina?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Panthers here. I think the Packers kind of, I don't know, they were a little bit of a fugazi. Like you said, they beat the Chiefs and then they started looking like shit again. Shout out Luke. I know he's in shambles, but I mean, they're not making the playoffs.
Fugazi, Tommy DeVito, a pasta pizza.
Now you sound like Giuseppe.
Sorry, that was my New York Giants alter ego coming out there.
The Panthers, I just think sometimes their defense is good and they're at home. I think the Packers win in a close one, closer than I'd like to think. But I'm going to go with the Panthers here. And then I like the over here as well. The Packers defense we saw last week made Baker Mayfield look like prime Tom Brady. So I'm going to go with the over in this game. So I'll go Panthers +5, over 38. And I think the Green Bay Packers win by about 3. Although I do think the Panthers can have a little upset alert here as well.
Oh, so LJ on Carolina a little bit, at least for the purposes of this podcast. 5 points is not a daunting task for them. And Bryce Young coming down the stretch here, he's getting a little bit more experience, capable of pulling off a win. Who knows? But the Packers are fugazi. They're not what their record says, and they've been slipping the past few weeks here. I was so confident picking the Packers against the Giants on Monday Night Football a few weeks ago and for them to lose. And then I just had no interest at all in playing that game for Packers Bucs last week. I feel like that was such a coin flip game. But to see the Bucs come into Lambeau and beat the Packers 34-20, definitely puts me low on their totem pole. But I can't pick the Panthers at all whatsoever. This team's garbage. They've been garbage all year. They've won 2 games. They beat the Falcons 9-7 last week. That's even more reason that everyone should pick the Colts this week, going up against the Falcons for how bad they are. And I just got to roll with the Packers taking out their frustrations on the Carolina Panthers this week. Green Bay -5, over 37.5. Green Bay to win 27-20. Packers money line lock for the week. Now, if you want to take them with the 5 points, that's something that I would tread cautiously for reasons like LJ is mentioning. Okay, we're going to the Sunday afternoon set here. We've covered all the morning games, and we do have those Tampa Bay Buccaneers to talk about. They're going to be hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday afternoon. This is 4 o'clock on the East Coast. The Jaguars lead this series 4-3 all time. This game is going to be mostly cloudy. Tampa Bay is actually 3-point favorites at home with an over-under of 40.5. I know the week that we were talking about the Jaguars playing the Niners, this could be the Jaguars' year, but they've been on a skid here. And actually, Tampa Bay has won a few games here recently. So, LJ, we pass to you. How do you feel about this game in Tampa Bay?
Yeah, give me the Bucs here if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play. I think that I think these are two really bad defenses, and the Jags without Christian Kirk and without Trevor Lawrence, I don't see how they do anything, especially on the road. So I'll go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I feel like they're the hotter team. They've been playing well. And shout out Baker Mayfield. I mean, everybody was pretty much thought he was, out of the league, and he's low-key been balling.
Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, Baker Mayfield. So I'm gonna go with the Bucs here to win by about a field goal. I like a lot of overs this week. That's a little fishy. So, but I'm gonna go with the over in this game too, over 41.5. I think both teams score a little bit, but I think ultimately the Buccaneers win by about a field goal.
We are at this point in the Baker Mayfield cycle where get pissed off, play great, but I don't know. Trevin knows that meme better than I do.
I love that meme. We're getting a little mixed signals from LJ's catching hate in the Baker Mayfield's catching hate in the last one, calling him out. Green Bay defense making him look like Tom Brady.
Play with chip on your shoulder.
And now we're saying Baker Mayfield's hot. Like, I don't really know. Anyway, you know me. I love Baker Mayfield. He is very cyclical. That is absolutely true. Until he proves me otherwise, and proves everyone else otherwise, I don't think we can say that he isn't. But I'm always going to ride the Baker Mayfield train. Loved him since college. Baker Mayfield for president. I still don't know if Trevor Lawrence is going to play. I looked up this morning. It seems like all the reports are that he's still in concussion protocol. I had heard some podcasts earlier in the week where they thought that he was going to play, but he obviously hasn't cleared yet. So I do think if Trevor Lawrence plays, this obviously makes it like quite a bit more of a dangerous game. But regardless, like, I'm riding the Baker Mayfield train. Hopefully, he's in the correct part of his cycle and we can be right here. But yeah, taking the Bucs to cover. I'm also taking the over here. I do think this has a bit of a shootout potential. And yeah.
All right. Buckaroos fire the cannons, both on the Bucs this week to beat the Jags. And then can you all repeat the over-unders, where you stand on those?
Bucs, or the over, taking the over.
Yeah, I got the over as well.
Both on the over and both on the Bucs this week. I'm going to play this as if Trevor Lawrence is going to play. I saw some practice footage from him on their Instagram today. He looks like he's slinging the ball fine. I think he'll get out of concussion protocol. Dude, I'm not buying on anything on the Bucs. They might have won the last few weeks, but even if the Jags have a backup, I'm going to invest in, that coaching staff. I'll invest in the Jags competing. I feel like how they've played this entire season, I just have to tip my cap to the Jags before I go tipping my cap to the Bucs coming down the stretch here. But hey, if the Bucs get this win and sneak into the playoffs, maybe as the 4 seed, because they'll win the NFC South and take in the 1 seed, they'll get to host a playoff game. And maybe the Bucs are a team like the Bills that if you let them in, they're going to be dangerous in the postseason. I'm going to ride the Jags though. I have a feeling Trevor Lawrence is going to play. And I feel like, the Jags, we're looking at a team right here that is sitting at 8-6, and we're looking at a Bucs team that's sitting at probably like 7-7 or 6-8. The Bucs are 7-7, so I'm going to ride the 8-6 team that's looked better all season, and I'm going to buy into the Jags culture. Jacksonville +3, over 40.5, and Jacksonville to win this one 21-20 to prove that they are one of the best teams in Florida, but not because the Miami Dolphins are there. Okay, next up, let's go Arizona Cardinals. They're going to play the Chicago Bears. The Bears lead this series 57-29 all time. This game's looking like patchy fog, then mostly cloudy. At home, the Bears are 4-point favorites. The over-under is 43. So, Trevin, let's begin with you. I know the Cardinals got a win a few weeks ago against the Steelers. Do you think they have the same magic in store for the Bears this week?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a hard one. The Cardinals are one of those teams that are supposed to be bad, but like seem to be coached really well and can be good. And then, the Bears are a team that's like bad, but can have like a really hot game. And I think that might have been what we saw last week. They did one of those earlier in the season where they had a really hot game and then they just fell off the week after. So they're good in spurts. Like I feel like when they're hot, they're hot. And if they're not hot, they're trash. I know the Cardinals are not favored here, but I'm actually going to take the Cardinals. I just think I think they'll scheme up something on defense. Like they've done really well this year with that, and they'll kind of shut down the Bears offense. And if they do that, if the Bears experience any adversity, I feel like they just fall apart. And so I'm going to take the Cardinals here. I am going to take the under though on this one.
All right, so Cardinals to cover that 4 points, under 43. Do you like the Cardinals to win this one, or do you like the Bears this week?
Oh yeah, I think the Cardinals cover, and I think they actually win. I'm taking them full out.
All right, K1 coming for the win in Chicago this week for Trevin. LJ, how do you see this one playing out in Chicago?
Yeah, I like the Cardinals too. I said on previous pod. Honestly, both these teams I've been making some good money on.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are usually dogs, and they're just scrappy teams, but I feel like this line should be about a field goal. I think these teams are pretty even, if anything. So I'll go with the dog here in the Cardinals. As far as the total goes, I'm not really sure. I could see it going either way because the Bears defense has looked pretty good, but the Arizona Cardinals defense is atrocious. So I'll go with the over. I'll just keep the overs rolling, but I'll go with the Cardinals to cover the 4. And I think this is about a field goal game. And I'll go with the Bears to win by a field goal, but the Cardinals cover.
Chicago Bears coming back, looking competitive down the stretch here, and enough to win against a team like the Cardinals, who has 3 wins on the season. That's something they should be able to do. Bears with 5 wins on the season. I picked the Steelers a few weeks ago against the Cardinals, got burned by that. So the Cardinals, have looked competitive. They beat the Falcons the week before that. But let's see, last week when we saw the Cardinals most recently, they lost 29-45 against the Niners. So shows you where they stand, but still able to put up points. I'm going to roll with the Cardinals in this one. I feel like this is definitely a team that has been covering for the most part of the season. And I don't see the Bears as that much better than the Cardinals. So Cardinals +4 for sure. I could see sneaky shootout here. I think with Justin Fields and Kyler Murray, we're looking at weather that's patchy fog, then mostly cloudy. And in Chicago, that's not terrible weather. And I feel like both of these quarterbacks are playmakers. They're fantasy quarterbacks. So that bodes well for the over. So I'll play that in this one. And I'll actually take the Cardinals to win this one, 24-23. I became a little bit of a believer when they looked good in Pittsburgh a few weeks ago. All right, we have the Dallas Cowboys after losing in Buffalo this past weekend. They're going to go down to play the Miami Dolphins in the AFC East. This is going to be a good matchup that we have on Sunday. The Cowboys lead this series 8-7. This is an afternoon set game, 4:00 on the East Coast. Mostly cloudy in Miami, looking like 76 for this matchup. Pick'em game. Dolphins are 1-point favorites at home. A higher over-under at 50 total than a lot of the games that we've talked about thus far. LJ, we're going to pass it to you. This is a good matchup we got in Miami. How do you see this one playing out on Sunday?
I've been going back and forth, honestly. I honestly really don't know. But my initial thoughts were Cowboys in a bounce back spot, but Miami's pretty good at home. We saw what happens to the Cowboys if you just run all over them, and the Miami Dolphins can run the rock. So I'm gonna go with the Dolphins here, minus the 1.5. But I mean, I'm not confident in either side. I think either side could win. Both these teams are really good against really bad teams, but when they play against a really good team, that you don't really know what they're going to look like. As far as the total goes, 50, definitely the highest of the week. But I think I'm going to go under here. Both defenses are obviously good. Dolphins have been looking better. The only thing that gives me pause about the total is I think the linemen for both teams are all banged up. So there is a possibility that it could legit just be a 7-on-7, and I don't know. We'll see. But I'll go with the Dolphins here to win by like about a field goal.
And one of those linemen that you're mentioning, Zach Martin, he went out for the game for the Cowboys against the Bills. That was a big loss for them. And I believe Connor Williams is the name of the center on the Dolphins, but he came from the Cowboys and he's been out. I don't know of Armstead's health right now, but definitely both team have some line issues. Trevin, LJ is swimming with the Fins this week and going under. How do you feel about this matchup in Miami?
Yeah, I mean these are two teams that can be really good. I think they've showed how talented they are a number of times throughout the season, but they've also showed that they can just have weeks where they fall apart at times. That being said, the Dolphins are probably my second favorite team in the NFL just because I love watching them. I love watching that offense. I love the talent that they have on the offensive side of the ball. I love Mike McDaniel, the way he coaches, his offensive schemes. I love everything about it. Achan's back this week. Tyreek is said to be playing with supposedly looks 100% at practice. And so excitement factor. I mean, I believe it too, but just excitement factor alone, I always got to ride with the Dolphins. I just always do. And when I ride with the Dolphins, I love the overs too, because it's just, those games are electric. So Dolphins on the over, Dolphins to cover and to win the game.
All right. So Miami sitting at 10-4 on the season. If they get this win at home, that puts them to 11-4 and still in contention for potentially getting the 1 seed in the AFC, because we have Baltimore that has to play San Francisco on Monday night, and Baltimore is sitting at 11-3. So big game for Miami this week if they can get the dub, and vice versa. Same thing for the Cowboys. Big thing in the NFC. They're sitting at 10-4 as well, along with the Eagles. The Niners are at 11-3, and the Lions are at 10-4. So big playoff implications for them. Look, for how the Cowboys look last week in Buffalo, I'm not picking that momentum going into this week. The only thing that I can say is there is a stat on the Cowboys that when they have lost this season, they've come back and won every game after that. So that's where you would feel good about them being a bounce back team in a situation like this. How they looked against Buffalo, though, they got pushed back against that Buffalo offensive line. Josh Allen didn't even need to be a superhero. James Cook was running it all over the Cowboys. And that's about the extent that it goes. I mean, I don't even know what to mention with their offense because it was non-existent. And the Buffalo Bills pass rush was getting to Dak consistently on Sunday. So that's going to be an issue that they need to fix. But with no Zach Martin, I don't see him coming back this game. I'm not picking against the Dolphins this week. Huge thing for them is, are you going to have Tyreek Hill or not? He's that big X factor for them. So if they have a healthy Tyreek Hill, that makes the Dolphins a whole different football team. If they don't have him, and we saw that in that stretch there against the Titans recently on Monday night, that's definitely a big factor for them. But I'll roll with Miami at home -1, over 50. We've seen both of these teams score points this year, and the Fins to take this one 26-23. Will not have this in a bet for the week. Okay, next up, let's see what we have here. I believe we have the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Kansas City Chiefs are playing the Raiders this week. This game is in Kansas City, and let me get you all a spread here. Chiefs lead this series 8-5 all time. There's a chance of rain and snow in Arrowhead, so that could affect the over-under. Kansas City is a 6-point favorite at home after the Raiders coming off of their big win last week. The over-under is 42.5. LJ, we have to begin with you. You got to see the Raiders dismantle the Chargers last week. but do you think that they have more up their sleeve and be able to go into Kansas City against their rival and cover or potentially win this game?
Realistically, probably not, but I got to ride with my team, so I'm going to go with them to cover. But I don't think that they win this game. I think last week was kind of their Super Bowl. As far as the total goes, I could see this. I think I like the under here. I mean, not much to say. The Raiders season is over. They did the same shit as every other year. We have a pretty good team, no quarterback, so it doesn't really matter. So I'll go with the Chiefs to win. Well, but I'll go with the Raiders to keep it somewhat close, and I'll go final score Chiefs 20 to like 17.
Yeah, and for the Raiders, I mean, for as far as draft position goes, they're sitting at, let's see, 6 and 8 here. So I don't know what quarterback's going to be available, but Jimmy G wasn't the guy. That's something that we learned this year. Aiden O'Connell's looking a whole lot better, than he has. So I feel like that's really interesting for a guy like him who came over for, a decent amount of money to be the Raiders guy. Trevin, how do you see this one playing out in Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, I know I was talking a little bit earlier on the podcast that like the Chiefs, are they a bit of frauds this year? I mean, they're definitely a shell of what they once were. I mean, they definitely don't have the offensive talent that they've had in previous years as well. Kadarius Toney just Butterfingers, bro. That guy. It's just so funny. Guy looks like a fucking kook too, like just such a clown, like just straight kook of the day over there. But I don't know, it's funny. I love the memes. I love the memes about him. They're absolutely hilarious. Um, with that though, I mean, I can't ever bet against Patrick Mahomes. Like, so even with everything that they've been having going, like I feel like Patrick Mahomes he's that guy. Like he's just a difference maker. He really is. So I'm gonna take it's a big spread, but I'm taking the Chiefs here. I'm taking them to cover. And because it's such a big spread, I'm gonna take the over because I think the Chiefs have to put up some points in order to get that spread.
All right, so KC coming in, and the Raiders unfortunately fallen this week. The Chiefs, if they are able to get a win this week, that's going to punch them up to 10-5. So depending on what happens to Miami this week, and also what happens to Baltimore this week as well, they are still within contention in the AFC. I am also going to ride with the Chiefs this week to win the game, but 10 points is too much. How the Chiefs have looked recently, they have not been blowing out teams. The Raiders have looked competitive the past few weeks. I like the fact that they put it up on the Chargers. I think that gives them a boost going into this game. So 10 points for me is too much. I'll take the Raiders to cover that 10 points. And then over 41, the only thing that for me would affect this over-under here, because the Chiefs scored a lot of points against the Raiders earlier this season, is the weather. The fact that there is rain or snow, that could affect the total. But I'm going to take the Chiefs to win this one 24-20. And the Raiders to cover that 10 points. We did skip over the Sunday night game, so I need to go back to that really quick. Not a super interesting game coming up here, but we do have to call this one out. So let's jump back before we go to the full slate of NFL games that we have this week. And that is the New England Patriots as 7.5-point dogs on the road to the Denver Broncos with an over-under of 34. LJ, what is your pick for the Denver game this week?
I'll go with the Patriots here. I mean, I do think the Broncos are definitely the better team, and the Patriots are god awful. Damn, I can't believe this is a night game. That sucks. This is Sunday night?
Sunday night, yep.
Damn. Well, I'm going to go with the Broncos. I mean, I'm going to go with the Patriots to cover the 7, only because I think this is going to be a really low-scoring game. So with that being said, I'm going to go with the under. I like that much better. So I'm going to go with the under 35.5. And the Patriots to lose by like 4 points, this being like a 17-13 game or something like that.
Pats cover, but Broncos get the win. The Broncos, that would put them at 8-7. So they are still within the wild card hunt if they're able to get the win this week. Trevin, your Sunday night pick in Denver.
Yeah, I'm actually going to circle back super quick on Chiefs Raiders. I didn't realize that there was like severe weather. I didn't know there was going to be rain or snow in the game. So with that, I'm actually going to switch that to the Raiders cover, the Chiefs to win, and I'm taking the under now. But
Okay.
I'll move past that. New England Patriots, Denver Broncos. Can we just talk really quick? Like, is Bill Belichick a fraud? And if he is, like, I'm so stoked on it. Like, I thought for a while Tom Brady was a fraud. I thought it was Bill Belichick. I thought Tom Brady was a system QB. Proved me wrong when he leaves the team, goes to the Bucs, like wins another Super Bowl. Now is Bill Belichick the fraud? Like, can we just talk about that for a second? Like, he's a fraud, right?
He's not a
I
fraud, but
just
at a certain point, players need to make plays. And can you name anyone significant on the offensive side of the ball? Is Juju Smith-Schuster supposed to be their saving grace this season? Can Mac
But is
Jones
that
can he
is
get them
that
the ball? Like,
is that Belichick though? Like just drafting and picking up bad players?
yeah,
Like if you think about it,
the fact that he does play GM, I think affects them. And he has made offseason acquisitions like prioritizing Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, like tight ends instead of getting marquee receivers when they're on the market, running back. So I agree. I think Belichick as a GM has harmed them more than helped them.
because he hasn't drafted well, he hasn't picked up good players. I mean, if you think about it, even back to the Brady days, like what does Brady always get shout outs for? Yes, they had like some times when like Randy Moss was there and some other players, but most of the time, like it was always like, look at how bad the threats are on the Patriots offense, but like Brady makes them look good. So like, has Belichick just always picked trash players and not had Brady here now to like save them? Like maybe, I don't know. I feel like he's kind of a fraud, and I love it. Had to throw that out there. Anyway, for that reason,
Well, hold on, LJ, jump in before we keep moving.
no, I just think he's low-key just past his time. I just feel like he's like a senile old man. I guess their defense is still pretty good, but when it comes to personnel, I just feel like they're hella boring. You know, their offenses, they've been the same way for years now. Boring offense. They just had the greatest quarterback of all time, and their defense is going to be all right most of the time. So they're not a good watch. And I mean, it's pretty much a lock that he's gone next year anyway. So
yeah. Well, I'm calling him a fraud. I'm just putting that out there in the ether. I hate the Patriots, obviously, for maybe I'm biased. But anyway, for that reason, yeah, I'm taking the Broncos to win this. I'm also gonna take the Broncos to cover. Like I think LJ's right. Like the Patriots defense is pretty good largely. They've had some games where I think that's caused me to doubt them a little bit, but like largely they're a good defensive team. Their offense is obviously terrible. I don't know the Broncos on the back half of the season. You know, I know they came off a recent loss, but like they were on a string of looking good. Like I think Russell Wilson, I've said this since the beginning. Like I don't think Russell Wilson was even playing that bad when they were losing games. Like if you look at like some of the plays he was making, yes, like the first couple games he wasn't taking off and running the ball as much, and I do think that harmed him a little bit. And then he loosened up and they started to play better. But like even before he was doing that, I think there was just players around him, a lot of dropped passes, a lot of things like that were really limiting him. I think they've tightened that up a little bit, and they've looked better. And so I'm taking the Broncos to win here. I'm taking the Broncos to cover as well, even though it's a big spread. I am going to take the under though, even though this is a really low under, just because I don't think that the Patriots put up very many points. I do think that the Broncos put up, a few, but I think the Patriots defense will hold them to enough to drive that under.
Can you guys talk me into taking the Broncos money line in the parlay this week? Because I feel like at this point we should be able to take the Broncos over the Patriots, but I just have such a tough time trusting the Denver Broncos to bring a win home in the NFL. So that's where I'm sitting at with this game. Patriots +7, just because they've looked competitive recently, and Denver got smacked in Detroit last week. So that puts me low on their totem pole. But I think Broncos for sure, they should get the win. The Patriots just are so deprived of talent on that team. It's hard to pick them to win any game, except when they go into Pittsburgh a few Thursdays ago and make that shit happen. So what Bailey Zappi, Hunter Henry combo are we going to get this week? Broncos to win, Patriots to cover, low scoring game, 20-17, Denver. Okay, next up, let's go to the NFC East. These are two Monday night games that we have, and then we can riddle off our parlays for the week. The New York Giants are going to play the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles lead the series 92-87 all time. Partly sunny game in Philadelphia, 54. Eagles 13.5-point favorites, over under at 43. LJ, we begin with you. I mean, do you see the Giants covering here, or is this like a big bounce back week for the Eagles?
I really don't know. I'd like to think it's a bounce back week for the Eagles, but I just feel like their defense is so garbage, or their secondary is so garbage. The Giants can low-key be scrappy sometimes, but I mean, I just find it hard to believe that the Eagles are just bad now. And I think that, I mean, I would like to think that this is a bounce back spot at home versus a Giants team who doesn't have the personnel to really match up with them. So I'll go with the Eagles here. I'll go with the over 43 because I think that the Eagles try to get right on offense, feed AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and everybody. So I'll go with the over, and I think the Giants probably score some garbage points to keep the total a little bit higher. I can't see this being a stinker defensive matchup. So I'll go with the Eagles to win by 2 scores, like 14, and then I'll go over 43.
All right, Fly Eagles Fly, getting back into the mix here. They have had a few tough losses recently, but this is a good bounce back spot for them to get their confidence going into the playoffs. Eagles cover, and then also over 43. Trevin, how do you feel about this matchup in Philly on Monday?
I actually feel a little bit the opposite here. I obviously think the Eagles are going to win the game, but I think this is another team that's like maybe a bit of a fraud. They're also kind of like the new Chargers this year, where they just like somehow never seem to really run away with it, even when they should. Like they kind of squeak out wins at the very end. Like I follow a lot more Eagles fans than I even know, because every like Monday I wake up to a bunch of memes on stories of how stressful it is to be an Eagles fan. So, I mean, Jack Pappas probably knows how stressful it is to be an Eagles fan even more because he's dealt with the Chargers for however many years. That's just been their identity. With that though, I'm taking the Eagles to win. Obviously, like they're not losing to the Giants. They're not that much of a fraud, but I think the Giants actually cover here. And I'm gonna take the under. So pretty opposite of LJ, other than the fact that we both at least agree the Eagles will win.
He speaks a Paisan, Tommy DeVito coming out to swinging the rock and covering the 13.5 points this week. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Daniel Jones, is his job in jeopardy? I would say it is at this point. Tommy DeVito's look pretty good. You know, Danny Dimes, your time is up in New York. Although you did lead the team to the playoffs last year, looked decent down the stretch and just opened up horribly this season. I mean, I got to go Philly to cover the 13.5-point spread here. Trevin, I think there's much reason that you could pick the Giants, especially how they came out against the Packers a few Mondays ago. But they came back down to reality in New Orleans. I know, LJ, you and I are low on the Saints on this panel, and the Saints put some work in on the Giants last week. So I have to go Philly in a bounce back spot here with 13.5 points. Also have to go over 43. I feel like the Eagles offense has potential. They just need to play that way. And against an inferior opponent in the New York Giants, this is their opportunity to do it. Eagles 28, Giants 17. Eagles money line, that's definitely a thought for this week. Okay, last up here, this is a potential Super Bowl matchup that we have here based on how both teams have looked as the 1 seed in each conference up until this point. So this is going to be a good one to pick. The Baltimore Ravens are going across the country to play the San Francisco 49ers. They're headed out west for a Monday night Christmas Day showdown. The Ravens lead this series 5-2 all time. Game is looking mostly cloudy, low of 48, with the Niners favored by 5.5 points at home. The over-under is 47. I would say this is the game of the year. So, Trevin, let's start with you. How do you see the game of the year playing out in San Francisco?
Yeah, I mean, this is just like an absolutely insane game to have Monday Night Football on Christmas. Like, I agree. I don't know that there could be a much better matchup. I know maybe earlier in the year, I thought at the beginning of the season when Cowboys were looking hot, like, Cowboys Niners would have been the game of the year. That obviously didn't turn out to to be that way, unfortunately, Alex. But now we're in late season stride. I think teams are more developed. They're looking like the version of themselves they want to be. So I think this is going to be a really good game. That being said, like even though I hate 49ers fans, like I've been riding the 49ers pretty hard all year. They had a 2 or 3 game stretch where they didn't look as good. Brock Purdy, though, bounced back, obviously MVP candidate. Christian McCaffrey also potentially in the running for MVP candidate. They're just such a complete team, like on all sides of the ball, so many offensive threats, solid defense. I'm taking the 49ers to cover here. Obviously taking them to win. And this one's tough. The under or the over here. This is pretty high over. I mean, both these offenses can be dangerous, but also these defenses are both really good. Like the Niners have a solid defense. Statistically speaking, the Ravens have the best defense this year. And so even though they've got good offenses that can put up points, like I don't know that this over just seems too high with the talent on the defensive side of the ball. So I got to take the under here.
All right, so rocking with the under this week, and then Trevin, your game winner this week.
Yeah, so I'm taking the 49ers to cover, and I'm taking them to win. So
all right, bang bang Niner game, 5.5 points. That's not enough for the Niners. They're going to take care of business hosting a Baltimore team, and then 47.5 points, a little too much. Trevin's going to ride the under in this matchup. Points are hard to come by. LJ, how do you see this one playing out in San Francisco?
I mean, I do like I said, I think the Niners are probably going to win the Super Bowl, easily the best team. But I mean, 5.5 points against the Ravens, who I just think that their defense is really good. Lamar Jackson's playing pretty well, but I mean, we've seen once the Ravens start losing and Lamar has to throw the whole time, he kind of just turns into a different player. But I mean, I think in this spot, I'm going to go with the Ravens. 5.5 just seems like a lot for the two best teams in the NFL. Can I see the Niners absolutely destroying the Ravens? Yeah, 100%. But I'll go with the Ravens here, plus 5.5. And I agree with Trevin. I like the under as well. Two good defenses. I think that the Niners win, but I think that the Ravens find a way to keep it close. They got some dogs on defense.
Yeah, this is a heavyweight one, so it's kind of tough to pick either way. But San Francisco is one of those teams where they'll take good teams and blow them out, and that's a bad sign for other NFL teams where they're beating the shit out of the Jaguars, they're beating the shit out of the Eagles, they're beating the shit out of the Cowboys. That's not a good look for the rest of the league. But I don't think Baltimore has gotten blown out this season yet. That hasn't really happened to them. In fact, Baltimore has blown out a lot of teams this season. So this is definitely an interesting one to see them come across the country and see how they stack up against the Niners. Maybe it's a little bit of rooting sake that I have for this one, Trevin, but I feel like Baltimore can keep this one close. They're well coached. Lamar Jackson is a huge X factor for that team. Never know what's going to happen with him in a good way, meaning that any NFL defense, he can put them on skates. Big loss for them this season was Mark Andrews. I'm interested to see how they overcome that coming down the stretch here, especially in the playoffs, because he's a reliable target for Lamar Jackson to have. But Baltimore's defense, I think statistically is the best defense in the NFL. If not, the Niners are playing really well too. So I feel like there's aspects of the Ravens team, huge signing for them in the offseason in getting linebacker Roquan Smith. He's been a big difference maker for them. And I like aspects of Baltimore's team that I feel like they can cover as well. LJ, this 5.5 points. And maybe it's rooting sake for me that wants them to cover too. Over 47 for this matchup. Looks like good weather. Brock Purdy, MVP candidate. Same thing as Lamar Jackson. I feel like both offenses can put up points. But I cannot pick the Ravens to beat the Niners based on how the Niners have looked all season. I got to rock with the Niners. So Niners to win 27-23, Baltimore to cover, and over 47. That's going to be opposite on side of that island from you next week, Trevin. So we got a good one on Monday night. All right, that's it. We covered every game from the slate. We got a full slate. No more teams are on buys at this point in the season. So we had to cover every game there, tell you what we feel good about. But now it's time to package it up and get the parlay for the week. It's a time to cash in everything that we talked about. But, what do we feel best about of every game that we covered? And sometimes it's not the teams that you put in, it's who you leave out that ends up saving your parlay for the week. So that's part of the decisions that we have to go through. Trevin, let's begin with you. How is your parlay for the week looking for week 16?
Yeah, so me, money line only guy. So we're taking the Bills money line, we're taking the Seahawks money line, we're taking the Browns money line. We're also taking the Colts money line. I'm taking the Broncos money line, Chiefs money line, and Eagles and Niners money line. Big one. Big week.
Okay, hold on. After the Chiefs, you had Eagles
And Niners, all money line.
and Niners. So let me count that. 1, 2,
I think that's like 8 or 9.
6, 7, 8. Am I
8.
counting 8 right? Are you going for the octopus?
Yeah, I'm going
He's going for the octopus.
little octagon here.
I'm getting money 8 ways like an octopus.
You put me in the ring.
All right, you got your tentacles all over week 16. The octopus 8-leg money line parlay. Trevin's got the Seahawks money line, the Browns money line, the Colts money line, Broncos money line, Chiefs money line, Eagles money line, and Bang Bang Niners gang to take care of the Ravens money line. That's an 8-leg money line parlay for you for week 16. I love it. The octopus is well within play for week 16. There was just some of those I didn't have enough balls to slip into my parlay for the week. LJ, how's your week 16 parlay looking?
Yeah, I got a 5-leg. Give me the Cleveland Browns -3, Indianapolis Colts money line, Tampa Bay Buccaneers -2.5, and then I'll go the over in Carolina Green Bay over 38, and then I'll go the under in New England Denver under 35.5.
All right, LJ, I feel like you're getting back to some of your form here. 4 to 5 leg parlay, but you got spreads and you've also got over unders that you got to climb this week. So we're starting off with the Browns -3. They're going to take care of the Texans. The Colts money lined on the road in Atlanta. They're going to take care of the Falcons. The Bucs -2.5. They're going to take care of the Jaguars in Tampa this week. The Green Bay Packers game against the Panthers, Bryce Young and Jordan Love, that's going to go over the total. And then Russell Wilson and Bailey Zappi in Denver, that game is going to go under in that matchup for the Broncos and the Pats. So a 5-leg parlay for LJ this week and an 8-leg octopus for Trevin. I'm coming in here with the hexagon for this week. I feel like the 8 legs, there are a few that get knocked off. So let's go for the hexagon this week. Some of these are a little too obvious, so I am going to have to play a spread. And that first one I'm starting with is the Buffalo Bills. I don't see any way how the Chargers looked last week that they don't get stomped on again. I hope that the Bills can travel across the country and are motivated to kick the shit out of the Chargers. Buffalo -12.5. I could buy down to 9.5, but for the purposes of this podcast, let's play it where it lies. Bills -12.5. Let's take the Colts +3, so get a half point. I think they'll win the game, but just to be safe, the Colts +3. Let's go Packers money line against the Panthers this week. Unfortunately, I see it here, so I'm going to do it. If it happens, I'll know where I went wrong. Broncos money lined against the Pats. I'm going to come join you on that one, Trevin. A little risky there for me, but I just think they're a better team. Let's go Chiefs money line against the Raiders this week. I think the Raiders cover, but the Chiefs take care of business. And then lastly, let's go with the Eagles money line over the Giants. I don't see any way that the Giants beat them this week, unless really Philly just fucks up their whole season, and we'll know where they went wrong. All right, last up here, let's go for survivor picks for the week. We've got our parlays. We got the money we're going to cash in, but one team to win no matter what. Who is that team going to be this week? And it can't be someone we think we picked up until this point. Trevin, let's start with you.
I forget. I forget. It's been a while since I've been on the pod. I don't even remember who I've picked this so far this year. I'll spit one out though. I'll do one that's a little dangerous. I'm gonna do the Broncos. I'm gonna do a little fun one. not going to pick something easy. I'm going to pick one that could go either way. So I'm taking the Broncos as my survivor pick.
I love it. That gives me more confidence to slip them into the hexagon this week. That the ponies are going to bring it to the Minutemen over there in Massachusetts. Trevin is riding with Broncos country this week. LJ, how's your Week 16 pick looking for Survivor?
That was a good one. That was probably going to be the one that I was going to go with. I'll go with. Can I say the Seahawks? I don't think that they lose to the Titans.
Yes, you can. And I feel like you have not picked the Seahawks up until this point.
I'll go with the Seahawks. I mean, I could see them winning by 3 points, but man, if they lose to the Titans, they stink.
All right, Seahawks, they're going into Tennessee. They're getting their win to try to get into that wild card push. And then for me this week, I will take the Packers. And if I can't take the Packers, let's take a dicey one and let's go with the Colts against the Falcons. I feel like the Colts for sure beat the Falcons this week. All right, that's it. So we have this week for you, we have an 8-leg octopus money lines from Trevin. We have a 5-leg pentagon from LJ with a mix of spreads and over-unders this week. And then coming from me, you have 2 spreads and 4 money lines for the 6-pick hectagon this week. Survivor teams are the Broncos, the Seahawks, and then let's go with Colts for me for my Survivor team. All right, Trevin and LJ, thanks so much for joining this Week 16 Parlay with the G's. Good luck to the Steelers against the Bengals this week, and good luck to the Raiders against the Chiefs this week. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right, good luck, y'all.
See ya.